I answered my husband's phone and a woman whispered, "I love you," and when I recognized the voice, my whole world tilted. Before we continue, tell me where you're listening from in the comments and please subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more true-to-life stories of betrayal, justice, and quiet strength. As you listen, ask yourself, would you confront immediately or gather proof first? My name is Natalie Hart. I'm 33, a freelance brand designer who works from a sunlit corner of our kitchen, and a mother to two 8-year-old whirlwinds named Max and Theo. Until last Monday at 7:15 a.m., I would have told you my life was exactly what I'd hoped for, routine in all the best ways. Coffee burbling, toast popping, lost sneakers reappearing under the couch, my husband Michael humming in the shower, the day unfurling like a clean sheet. The phone changed that. It was on the edge of the coffee table, buzzing hard enough to rattle a coaster. "Mom. Dad's phone is ringing," Max called from the den. "Yeah, it's loud," Theo echoed the way twins echo, a beat behind, same pitch. I wiped butter from my fingers onto a dish towel and reached for the screen. No number. Michael is particular about his phone. Always close, always answered by him. But the water was still running upstairs and the call was relentless. I swiped. "Hello." I whispered. For a breath there was only the hush of someone listening. Then soft as velvet and sharp as a blade. "Love, you left your ring and your watch again." A small, intimate chuckle. "I love you so much. See you soon." It was nothing and it was everything. 12 words, a giggle and a deadline, and my body reacted before my thoughts could catch up. My hands went cold, my mouth filled with the taste of pennies. The room went hyper-real. The sailboat dish towel my mom bought us 3 Christmases ago, the gluey smear of jam on Theo's chin, the tick of the wall clock. And the voice. Not a stranger's voice. Not even a friend's. A voice threaded through every birthday, barbecue and hospital waiting room of my life. A voice that had sung my boys to sleep when colic made me hollow, that knew my stupidest fears and my silliest joys because we'd shared them since childhood. Olivia. My cousin. My almost sister. The person I told everything to. Natalie. Water shut off upstairs. Pipes groaned. My breath came back in jagged pieces. I set Michael's phone down exactly where I'd found it, screen face down, like a tiny gravestone, and pressed my palms flat on the table until I could feel the wood steady beneath my skin. 5 minutes. Michael shouted, cheerful, unbothered. "Backpacks ready?" Max held up a book bag like a trophy. Theo spun in a circle because that is how Theo communicates readiness. I smiled with my teeth and not my eyes and poured orange juice that sloshed over, a little sunrise puddle spreading on the table I could not bring myself to wipe. Michael came down with damp hair and the aftershave I bought him for our anniversary, a scent that used to mean something warm and uncomplicated. He kissed my cheek. I flinched a fraction the way a person flinches at a bee they're trying not to swat. "You okay?" he asked, casual then less casual when he saw my face. "Presentation today," I lied. "The Nathaniel account. The presentation I finished on Friday." He nodded like a man relieved to have been handed a reason he didn't have to examine. He ruffled Max's hair, tweaked Theo's ear, reached automatically for his phone, didn't even look at me when he slipped it into his pocket facin'. "I'll be home by 6, he said. "Love you." The words felt like glass moving through me. "Love you," I said back because muscle memory is a powerful thing. The door closed and the house didn't so much settle as sag. I moved through the motions. Shoes, lunches, the last-minute hunt for Theo's water bottle that was exactly where I told him it would be, and got them into the car, into the lane, into the bright, indifferent morning. On the way home I tried to reason with myself the way reasonable people do when the truth is a freight train bearing down. Maybe I misheard. Maybe the call was a prank, a wrong number, anything. Except I know voices. I know her voice. We grew up in the same summer air, learned to whisper secrets on the same porch steps. We share a laugh other people can recognize from across a supermarket. It was Olivia. Back in the kitchen, the sailboat towel hung like a flag at half-mast. I put the kettle on I didn't need and opened my laptop I couldn't use. The cursor blinked in an empty document, patient and accusing. I closed it and looked instead at the small, ordinary evidence of a life. The charging dock, the basket for keys, the bowl of fruit, the family photos framed on the shelf. Michael and me at our wedding, Olivia beside me adjusting my veil with delicate, careful hands. I didn't cry. Not then. Not yet. The body keeps you afloat until it decides to drown you. Instead, I did the thing you do when you're not ready to feel. I noticed the new habit of Michael's phone always landing screen down. The way he takes calls on the back steps now, work stuff, waving a hand as if privacy were a mosquito. The late nights that started as once a week and somehow became most nights. The gifts, small, bright, and frequent, like band-aids tossed on a wound he was sure I wouldn't see bleeding. A jade green running shirt. A necklace that didn't feel like me. A fancy dinner because you deserve it, paid for with the card we both pay with. My mind did what minds do. It lined details up and tried to make them lie. The kettle shrieked and I jumped like a thief. I shut it off. I stared at nothing until something in me stood up and walked to the desk where we keep envelopes, paper clips, our boring adult life. I pulled out the last 2 credit card statements and flattened them with my palms. Restaurants I'd never set foot in. A florist across town. A jewelry store charge from 2 months ago. The same week he gave me that necklace. 2 dinners for 2 on nights he'd said he had paperwork. Tips generous enough to read like guilt. I took photos with my phone, my hands steadier than they had any right to be. I opened our mobile plan and saw the call logs, the length of them, the rhythm of them. Midday on a Wednesday, midnight on a Thursday, 6 a.m. Sundays. The number wasn't saved. Didn't have to be. I know it. When the boys tumbled in at 3, the house remembered how to be a home. Theo handed me a crumpled math worksheet and announced he could now multiply by 9s because there was a trick with fingers. There is indeed. Max wanted to explain something about photosynthesis that warranted 3 hand-drawn diagrams. I laughed in the right places. I got down on the floor and built a wobbling city out of blocks until a skyscraper toppled and Theo laughed his wild, glorious laugh and something in my chest cracked open with love and grief at the same time. Can Olivia come Saturday? Max asked later, casual as air. She promised to teach us that paper airplane that loops. My mouth went dry. We'll see, I said, the parent phrase that means I am not promising you a thing. They didn't notice the way my hands gripped the edge of the counter. Children are mercifully self-involved. That night, when their breathing had evened out and the house had gone to a whisper, I sat at the kitchen table with the statements spread like a map and my phone lit up with a blank text thread to a contact labeled Dad. I typed, "Are you up?" I erased it. I typed, "Can you come by tomorrow morning? I need help." I let that sit there as if words can warm each other when they huddle. Before I could send it, footsteps creaked on the stairs. I shoved the statements under a magazine like a teenager hiding contraband. Michael walked in with that easy, familiar gait I had memorized and, suddenly, horrifyingly, no longer recognized. "You still working?" he asked, opening the fridge for water. "Yeah," I said because the truth felt like a cliff and the lie felt like a railing. He leaned against the counter and looked at me, really looked, a frown ghosting across his face. "You sure you're okay?" "I'm fine." I even smiled. I have always been a good student. I know how to act normal when I have to. He kissed my forehead, this time not noticing the wince I failed to suppress. "Big day tomorrow. Don't stay up." When he was asleep, I lay in the dark beside him and watched the ceiling. I listed facts like beads on a string. Phone call, voice, ring, watch, love you, see you soon. I listed the holes I could drive a truck through. No names spoken, no explicit Michael, no picture, no text in writing. I listed what I knew about myself. I don't blow things up without proof. I don't set fires I can't control. I don't let my boys' lives become collateral damage because I couldn't hold my breath for a day longer. Somewhere after midnight, a plan began to take the shape of a spine. Not revenge. Not yet. Clarity. Protection. Light. At 6:10 a.m. the world blinked awake again. Cereal. Socks. Permission slip. Forgot to charge tablets. The choreography of an ordinary morning. Each step my body knew better than my mind. At 6:42, while Max argued with a sleeve and Theo explained, passionately, why breakfast should be legally classified as dessert, Michael's phone buzzed on the counter. He was upstairs grabbing his wallet. The screen lit. A preview line slid across the glass like a whisper. "Olivia, you left your ring again. I can swing by before 9. Red heart." My hand hovered. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The proof I wanted wasn't a single text. It was a pattern I could line up and show to anyone who needed convincing. Judge, lawyer, mother, myself. "Natalie." Michael's voice floated down the hall. "Have you seen my wallet?" I said, placing it by the door like I had every morning for the last 7 years. Because ritual is a kind of mercy. And your watch, I added, light as air, and opened the drawer where his watches sat in a tidy row. He glanced at the counter, at the phone, at me. Flicker, was it fear? Guilt? Or simple agitation because he was late? He slipped the watch on, slid the phone into his pocket. Facin'. 6 o'clock, he said, already halfway out the door. Love you. Love you, I said to the wood grain. When the house was quiet again, I stared at the text preview burned into my brain and finally pressed send on the message to my dad. Can you come by at 10? I need help. Please don't call first. His reply was immediate, like he'd been holding his phone waiting for a way to be useful. 10. I'll bring coffee. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been saving for later. I gathered the statements, opened my laptop, took screenshots, started a neat little folder with a neat little name. Household. Inside it, a neater little folder named Receipts. Inside that, another named Logs. I have always found order comforting. Today it felt like armor. At 8:51 the doorbell rang. I froze. My father is never early and never rings. He knocks his shorthand knock that means it's me. I wiped my palms on my jeans and walked to the door with a steadiness I did not feel. Through the glass, a familiar silhouette. Long coat, hair pulled into a soft low bun. A smile practiced over 3 decades of family photos. Olivia. Holding something small and gleaming in her open palm. Morning, Nat, she sang, eyes bright as if mornings had never delivered knives. Michael left this at my place. His ring. And that is where I leave you for now. Olivia's hand was still outstretched, Michael's wedding band gleaming in her palm like some cursed token. I forced my lips into a smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. Thanks, I said evenly, taking the ring and tucking it into my pocket. You must have caught him at the clinic yesterday? Her eyes flickered, too fast for most people to notice, but I've known her my whole life. Yes. He stopped by. Stopped by. That was the phrase she chose. Not he left it at work or he forgot it in the locker room. Stopped by. Lucky you noticed, I said softly. The boys would have scolded him for sure. She laughed, high and light, and for a moment I wondered if she could hear the pounding of my heart. She shifted the tote bag on her shoulder. I was just passing through anyway. Thought I'd drop it off before my errands. Thoughtful as always. I stepped back, resisting the urge to slam the door between us. Thanks again. I closed the door, leaned against it, and let my body shake in silence. The mask had held, but barely. My cousin. The girl who braided my hair at sleepovers, who held me after my first heartbreak, who toasted me at my wedding, was sleeping with my husband. At 10 o'clock sharp the doorbell rang again. This time it was the knock I knew by heart. 3 raps, steady as a heartbeat. Dad stood there with 2 coffees in a cardboard tray and the kind of look only a father gives when his daughter's in pain. He didn't need me to say a word. He could see it written in the tension of my shoulders, the raw edges in my eyes. We sat at the kitchen table, the one Michael and I had bought secondhand when we first married. Dad pushed a coffee toward me and said simply, "Talk." So I did. About the call. About the voice. About the text that appeared that morning, and the ring Olivia had delivered like a sick joke. About the statements, the late nights, the gifts that now looked like hush money for his own conscience. Dad listened without interruption, his hands braced around the coffee like it was holding him steady. When I finished, the silence sat between us like a third presence. "You're sure?" he asked finally. I nodded. My throat was raw. I'd know her voice anywhere, Dad. And the text, the ring. She came to the door. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping near his temple. My father is not a man who curses easily, but he muttered something under his breath that I had never heard from him before. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "But if it's true, if Olivia has done this to you, it's not just betrayal. It's treachery. And Michael," he shook his head, voice low with disgust. "He's a coward." I wanted to cry. Instead, I found myself saying, "What do I do?" Dad leaned back, eyes scanning me like he was measuring whether I was strong enough to hold what he was about to say. "You don't explode. Not yet. You don't tip your hand. If you go to your mother with this right now, it'll rip the family apart. And if you go to Michael without proof, he'll lie through his teeth and make you doubt yourself." So I wait. The words felt like swallowing glass. You wait and you prepare. You gather evidence until no one, no judge, no relative, not even Michael, can deny what he's done. Then you move. Smart. Precise. Ruthless. The word ruthless didn't sound cruel when my father said it. It sounded necessary. That afternoon I began. Not with shouting, not with confrontation, but with quiet, deliberate work. I copied down phone records, highlighting the number I knew belonged to Olivia. Dozens of calls at odd hours. Late-night texts. The pattern was clear. Then the credit card statements. Restaurants in neighborhoods we never went to. Hotel charges. A florist receipt dated the same week Michael handed me that necklace with a sheepish grin. I spread it all across the dining table like puzzle pieces, took photos, filed them into a secret folder on my laptop, labeled innocently as invoices. When Max and Theo came bursting through the door after school, the sight of their flushed cheeks and bright chatter almost broke me. Mom, Olivia said she might take us to the Science Museum, Theo announced wide-eyed. The knife twisted deeper. I smiled like a performer and ruffled his hair. We'll see, sweetheart. Let's finish homework first. Inside though, I was already planning how to shield them, from the lies, from the fallout, from losing faith in two of the people they loved most. That night, Michael came home with a bouquet of daisies. Grocery store daisies. For you, he said too casually. What's the occasion? I asked. He kissed my cheek. No reason. Just because. I smiled and set them in a vase, wondering whose perfume still lingered on his shirt, wondering if Olivia's lipstick had been wiped from his skin before he walked through our door. We ate dinner as a family. We laughed at Theo's impersonation of his teacher. We talked about Max's spelling test. To anyone looking in, we were happy. Perfect. Whole. But inside me, the first crack had widened into a fissure, and I knew soon it would all collapse. The Tuesday after Olivia's visit, the house felt like a stage set. Cereal bowls, school bags, Michael's half-drunk mug of coffee, all props in a play I had rehearsed for years. Michael kissed the boys, joked about the traffic, kissed me too. His lips brushed my cheek like a signature at the end of a forged document. Back by 6, he said. Don't forget parent-teacher night. I won't, I replied. My voice was steady, but inside I was screaming. How dare you stand here, wear this ring, kiss me in front of our children, and pretend you haven't destroyed everything? The door closed. The quiet was suffocating. I opened his laptop while the boys were at school. The password hadn't changed, our wedding date. I almost laughed at the irony. Most of the folders looked normal. Patient notes, work presentations, random photos of Max and Theo. But I noticed something odd. A new folder called certifications. Completely empty. Michael wasn't tech-savvy enough to bother hiding files that way. Then the browser history. Cleared. That more than anything made my stomach turn. Michael never cleared history. He left weeks of tabs open like clutter on a kitchen counter. But now, wiped clean. And in his emails, gaps, whole stretches of conversation threads missing. People don't delete innocent messages. I sat back, heart pounding, knowing I was in the middle of a war I hadn't declared. The phone buzzed just as I closed the laptop. A text. Olivia, hey sweetie. Was thinking of baking banana bread later. Want me to bring some over? I nearly dropped the phone. The audacity. She was still playing the doting cousin while carrying on with my husband. I typed back quickly. Not feeling well today. Maybe another time. Her reply was instant. Oh no. Do you want me to pick up the boys from school? My jaw clenched. Even now, she was inserting herself into my daily life, playing the caring relative while gutting me behind my back. I'll manage, I wrote. Thanks. She signed off with, love you, Nat. The words made bile rise in my throat. That night, after the boys were in bed, I printed everything I had. Phone logs, bank statements, screenshots. I slid them into a plain manila folder labeled household and hid it under the linens in our closet. Michael sat across the kitchen table, scribbling notes in a file. His brow furrowed, his pen tapping. To anyone else, he looked like a man devoted to his work. To me, he looked like a liar rehearsing lines. Everything okay? He asked, glancing up. Yes, I lied. My lies were cleaner than his because mine were born of survival. The next morning, the boys begged again. Can Olivia come this weekend? She promised to help us with our science project. Their trust in her was a knife that twisted deeper. They adored her and she was betraying them just as much as me. Maybe, I said, ruffling Theo's hair. We'll see. Inside, though, I had already decided, Olivia would never again sit at our dinner table without her secrets dragging her down. When Dad visited later in the week, I showed him the folder of evidence. His jaw tightened as he flipped through the papers. "This is good," he said. "But you'll need more. Photographs. Something undeniable." "Undeniable?" I asked. "You think Mom will believe this isn't enough?" His expression softened, but his eyes stayed hard. "Natalie, your mother worships Olivia. She'll need to see it with her own eyes. Otherwise, she'll blame you for tearing the family apart." The words stung because I knew he was right. That night I lay awake beside Michael, listening to his even breathing. I thought about how Olivia had held me when I miscarried years ago. How she had cheered the loudest at my wedding toast. How she'd kissed my boys' foreheads and called them her second sons. And then I thought about her voice, low and intimate, saying, "I love you. See you soon." It was then that I decided. This wasn't going to be a confrontation in the heat of rage. It was going to be a reckoning. By the time dawn broke, I knew what my next step had to be. I needed a professional. A private investigator. Someone who could drag the truth into the light so that no one, least of all Michael or Olivia, could deny what they had done. The morning after I resolved to hire a professional, I called the one person I trusted most outside my father. My friend Mara. She worked in legal administration and always seemed to know someone. When I told her, in guarded words, that I needed help with a personal matter, she didn't pry. She just said, "I know a guy. Ex-detective. Discreet. I'll text you his number." By afternoon, I was sitting in my car outside a nondescript office building, palms sweating on the steering wheel. The plaque on the door read, "Evan Ross Investigations." Evan was in his late 40s, steady-eyed, no nonsense. He didn't flinch when I told him my husband was cheating with my cousin. He only asked, "Do you want the truth or do you want enough to end him in court?" "Both," I said. My voice didn't even shake. 3 days later, Evan called. His tone was as clinical as a weather report. "Yesterday at 2:15, your husband met a woman matching Olivia's description at the Riverside Hotel. They stayed for 2.5 hours. I have photographs. I'll continue surveillance to establish a pattern." The air left my lungs in a rush. I had known, but knowing is not the same as seeing. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the phone with both. "Are you certain it was her?" I whispered. "Based on the photos you provided, yes. No doubt." I thanked him and hung up, then sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot and sobbed into my sleeve. Not because I was surprised. Because it was real now. Because it was final. That evening, Michael came home whistling. He kissed my cheek, set a takeout bag on the counter. "Thought I'd give you a break from cooking." The gesture that once would have made me melt now burned like acid. I looked at the bag, Thai food my favorite, and all I saw was him feeding me scraps of normalcy to cover the stench of his lies. We sat around the table, the boys chattering about science projects and playground games. Michael laughed with them, that easy laugh that once charmed me into falling in love. I wondered if he had laughed that same laugh in a hotel room with Olivia hours earlier. When he leaned over to kiss me goodnight, I forced myself to smile and murmur, "Good night." He didn't see that my fists were clenched beneath the sheets. 2 days later, a thick manila envelope appeared on my doorstep. Evan's handwriting. I carried it upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Inside, photographs. Crisp, undeniable, cruel. Michael and Olivia arm in arm, entering the Riverside Hotel. Her hand grazing his chest. His head bent toward her like a man who had done this 100 times. In another, they sat across from each other at the hotel restaurant, laughing like lovers. The worst was the parking lot. Olivia's hand on his cheek, his face tilted toward hers in a kiss I couldn't bear to keep looking at. I set the photos aside, then forced myself to read the report. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday meetings. Average duration, 2.5 hours. Registered under a false name, but paid with Michael's credit card. Vehicle plates confirmed. Olivia's car. Every line was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. That weekend, Olivia texted casually, "Hey, the boys left their soccer cleats at my place. Should I drop them by?" I stared at the message until my vision blurred. The same weekend Michael had taken them to a family barbecue at Olivia's. He had been planning his next hotel rendezvous with her. I typed back, "I'll pick them up." When I arrived, Olivia greeted me like nothing was wrong. Her house was cozy, filled with family photos. Photos that included me, Michael, the boys. My entire life framed on her walls. while she systematically destroyed it behind my back. She offered me iced tea, asked about my work, smiled the smile of a woman who believed she was untouchable. I studied her face carefully, searching for guilt, for a crack in her perfect act. For just a flicker that she knew the noose was already tightening around her. And for the first time I thought I saw it. Her hand trembled slightly when she set down the glass. That night, lying in bed, I pressed my hand against the folder of evidence hidden under the mattress. Each page, each photo was a weapon waiting for the right moment. I wasn't ready to confront them yet. Not Michael. Not Olivia. Not even my mother, who still adored Olivia like a daughter. But the net was tightening. And when it closed, it would close without mercy. Every Sunday my parents insisted on family dinner. It was a tradition as old as my childhood, the one ritual that made our chaotic family feel anchored. That week, just days after receiving the photos, I walked into my mother's dining room with the evidence burning a hole in my purse. The long oak table was dressed with candles, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and my mother's famous apple pie cooling on the sideboard. Everyone was there. My parents, my boys, Michael at my side, and, of course, Olivia. She greeted me with a hug that smelled of lavender shampoo and treachery. "You look tired, Nat," she murmured. "Working too hard?" I forced a smile. "Something like that." The boys rushed to show her their science project, their laughter bright and oblivious. She leaned in with that same doting warmth, the picture of a perfect cousin. If I hadn't seen the photos, I might have believed it too. But I had seen them. Conversation flowed like it always did. Dad told one of his dry jokes that made Max giggle uncontrollably. Theo spilled his juice. My mother scolded gently, her eyes flicking to me with that unspoken question mothers always ask. "Are you okay?" I nodded. Too quickly. Michael squeezed my hand under the table, his thumb stroking mine in what once felt like comfort. Now it felt like contamination. He laughed with my father, teased the boys, complimented my mother's cooking. A flawless act. And Olivia? She played her role just as well. She complimented Michael's tie, asked about his long hours at the clinic, and glanced at me with feigned concern when I barely touched my food. It was like watching a play where I was the only one who knew the script was false. After dinner, while Mom bustled in the kitchen, Olivia cornered me near the hallway. "You should rest more," she said, her tone dripping with sisterly affection. "Michael worries about you, you know." The audacity of it nearly made me choke. She had the nerve to talk about his worry, while sneaking into hotels with him. I met her gaze, steady and unblinking. "I'm sure he tells you all about it." For the briefest second, her eyes widened. Just a flicker. Then the mask returned. "Of course," she said lightly. "He's so devoted to you." But I had seen it, the fear. She didn't know how much I knew, and that uncertainty was my weapon. Later, as the boys played with toy cars in the living room, I caught Dad watching me. His gaze flicked between me, Michael, and Olivia, as if mapping the lines of deceit spreading through the family. When Michael leaned down to kiss my cheek before leaving, Dad's jaw tightened. He knew. Not everything, but enough. On the drive home, Michael was unusually quiet. At one stoplight, he reached for my hand. "You've seemed distant," he said carefully. "Are you unhappy?" The question was so brazen I almost laughed. Unhappy? The word was too small, too shallow for what I felt. But I only said, "I'm fine." Because fine was safer than the truth. That night, while tucking the boys into bed, Theo asked, "Mom, when is Olivia sleeping over again?" "She promised pancakes for breakfast." Max added, "She's the best, Mom." "We're lucky, right?" Their innocent words pierced me deeper than any knife. They adored her. To them she was fun, kind, and safe. And yet she was helping to shatter the only security they'd ever known. I kissed their foreheads and whispered, "Good night, loves." Then I sat in the dark hallway, shaking because I didn't know how to explain betrayal by the people they trusted most. When Michael finally fell asleep that night, I crept to the closet, pulled out the folder of evidence and spread it across the floor. Photographs, receipts, call logs, all staring back at me like silent witnesses. I thought of Olivia's false smile at dinner, Michael's warm hand on mine, the boys' laughter. And I swore to myself, they will not win. This wouldn't just be a divorce. It would be an unveiling. Everyone, my mother, my friends, this entire family, would see who they really were. And when they did, Olivia and Michael would never again be able to hide behind their smiles. On a rainy Thursday morning, Evan Ross called again. His voice was brisk, professional, merciless. It's conclusive now, he said. Your husband and cousin met 3 times in the last week. Hotels, restaurants, one rendezvous at her house when her husband was out of town. Photographs, timestamps, receipts. It's airtight. He paused, then added, You asked me for undeniable proof. You have it. Thanked him. My voice didn't waver. But when I hung up, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window and let the storm outside swallow my tears. That afternoon I met with Sophia Kent, my lawyer. Her office was warm, lined with plants and books, but her eyes were steel. We file for divorce immediately, she said, flipping through the evidence. Custody will be in your favor. Financially you'll be protected. He can't hide assets without leaving a trail. As for Olivia, she tapped the photographs. Once this comes out, her reputation in the family will collapse. I sat straighter. I don't just want to leave him. I want everyone to know what they've done. No more lies. No more Sunday dinners where she smiles across the table at me. Sophia nodded. Then we time it right. Public, undeniable, witnessed. That Sunday my parents invited everyone for my mother's birthday dinner. The irony was unbearable, but it also handed me the stage. We gathered around the table. Candles glowing, laughter bouncing off the walls. Michael poured wine. Olivia complimented my dress. My mother beamed, oblivious. I let it play out for half an hour. Normalcy at its finest. Then, as my father cleared his throat for a toast, I reached into my purse and laid the manila envelope on the table. Before we celebrate, I said, my voice steady, I need to show you something. The room fell silent. I opened the envelope, sliding out photographs, call logs, receipts. Evidence fanned across the table like a hand of cards no one wanted to see. My mother frowned, confused. My father's jaw hardened. The boys were in the next room, thank God. Michael went pale. Olivia's fork clattered against her plate. This, I said, my voice breaking but loud enough for every ear, is what my husband and my cousin have been doing behind my back. Behind all of our backs. Chaos erupted. My mother gasped, hands trembling as she lifted a photo. Olivia, no. Tell me this isn't real. Olivia stammered, eyes darting, face drained of color. Michael reached for me, pathetic, desperate, but I pulled away as if his touch was poison. It's real, I said. Every receipt, every message, every lie. They thought they could deceive all of us. But lies have a way of unraveling. My father stood, his voice shaking with controlled fury. Get out, he told Michael. Get out of my daughter's house. And you, he turned to Olivia, his own niece, you've destroyed this family. Don't you ever come back here. Olivia tried to speak, but my mother's sob cut through sharper than any word. 60 years, Olivia. 60 years of sisterhood with your mother, of trust in this family, and you do this. Michael left without a word, his face a mask of shame. Olivia followed, but not before looking back at me with eyes wide with something between rage and fear. The weeks that followed were brutal. Court filings, custody discussions, whispers through the family like wildfire. But through it all I held my head high. The boys adjusted slowly with questions I answered as gently as I could. Sometimes, I told them, people make choices that hurt others. But it doesn't mean we stop being strong. It doesn't mean we stop being us. Dad visited often, his presence steady as ever. Mom struggled with the loss of her niece, but she never once blamed me. She knew the betrayal wasn't mine to carry. And as for me, I learned something I never wanted to learn. Betrayal doesn't define you. What defines you is how you rise after the betrayal. Months later, standing in the lawyer's office as the judge's decree finalized my divorce, I felt an odd peace. Not joy. Not relief. Something quieter. Freedom. Michael had lost more than a wife. Olivia had lost more than a family. They had lost their masks. Me. I had lost illusions, but I had gained myself back.